It's bad. Anime.
All right, hooray, fucking everybody. This
coming out with a salty and sassiness right away. Okay, I think we'll this would have been obvious throughout the recording of this episode, but Bouncy and I here are both exhausted for different reasons.
We're both so tired for very different reasons that one of them was, I will say that mine was my doing. I chose to fly like on 3 different planes to get a cheap airfare, but you just had to work.
Yeah, once you said you had 2 layovers and one of them was 14 hours long, I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, and you want to record the next day?
Yeah,
sure?
I was fine. The 14-hour layover was in Frankfurt, so I literally went to like a hotel. I got a shuttle from the airport for free, which was great, to the hotel. And then I just spent 14 hours in the hotel, and all I did was like I had a beer, I ate some bratwurst, I think, and then I passed out for 12 hours. And then I woke up and I was like, time to fly again, baby.
Time to get back on and round 3 of this nonsense.
Time to ride that air hog all the way home, baby. And that's what I did.
Hot? Anyway, for me, it's very different.
You just had to work.
Yeah, no, for my day job, heat is a very relevant factor, and yesterday it topped at 90 degrees. So
wow,
just some crippling dehydration, and just before that was also a problem. It came into effect not with this show, but a different show that I watched recently for the pod, which we'll talk about when we talk about it. Anywho,
yes, we will.
This one I actually watched close to 2 years ago at this point.
Wow, oh my god! You know what was funny? Speaking about my flights.
Yes.
Sorry, this is bad anime. My bad.
And that's fine. You know
it. You clicked on it. You
clicked on it, and this is a part 2 of something we've already previously covered. So if you want our thoughts on the first season of Quintessential Quintuplets, go watch the episode from at this point to be last June.
Need I tell you all that this is part 2 of 3 even. We have a third part coming after this too, of the movie of Quintessential Quintuplets. But this is season 2. And the way that I watched season 2 was also on a plane, as much as my life has been lived for the past 2 weeks. Planes.
Right.
So I gotta say.
Sounds horrible. I mean, fun.
I thought.
But you can have all that airport beer.
Yeah, it's so much airport beer. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So great. You pay like $15 and they give you a pint and then you drink it.
And it's warm and there's no head.
So warm and no head. Also, my favorite nights.
Very warm and no head.
I just love a cozy evening with no sexual tendencies. You know what I mean,
out
dog?
With the boys, yeah. We're all going to be sweaty and no head.
No head. Not this time, at least.
3 people in the group nervously laugh because they just blew each other 10 minutes ago. It's like, yeah, no head for anybody.
I remember Mardi Gras 2018. Anyways.
You mean Long Island in 2017?
Yeah, Mardi Gras. That's what that is.
Mardi Gras.
I love the salmon bushing today. There's going to be a lot of salmon bushing today.
There's probably going to be an abundance for the next couple episodes. We'll see. We'll see how we feel.
So, yes, Quintessential Quintuplet Season 2. On the way, I was flying to Singapore. And on my flight to Singapore, I watched the entirety of Season 2 of Quintessential Quintuplets. I originally,
brilliant.
Last June, I started it. Briefly. Like, I got maybe 1 or 2 episodes in. I don't remember what fucking happened besides Futaro's eyes changed color.
It's funny because part of my prep work for today was listening to our episode on the first season of Quintessential Quintuplets.
That's a good idea. I should have done that. I feel
you didn't think to do that?
No.
Seems like a pretty easy move.
Do we have a podcast? I don't know. I don't know.
No, we're just on a Zoom call to catch up. We were too tired to make the trek to each other. So this is exactly what we're doing.
Exactly.
We're not recording any of this.
Oh, man.
Anyway.
We're not recording any of this. This is just a Zoom call.
Yeah.
It's more of a support group than anything.
Sounds about right.
So I watched all 12 episodes on the flight. And then I watched the movie on the flight, which also I was on Singapore Airlines. And I downloaded all the episodes on Crunchyroll. So I was on my iPad watching all the episodes. But then I also downloaded the movie on Crunchyroll. But when I got on the plane, I was like, let's take a brief look at like what the movies look like
Right.
on this plane. So I found the Quintessential Quintuplets movie on the plane. It was just it was on there. I was like, "What are you doing here?"
You texted me in all caps. My God, it's here! And I saw it. I'm like, oh, Bouncy is very excited about this right now.
And then I did some research, and most of Singapore Airlines flights are to Tokyo. So I was like, I guess it makes sense. You got a lot of Japanese people on here, and they want to watch an animated movie about quintuplets and a guy. But we're not talking about that movie yet.
Not yet. First,
No.
we got to talk about the entirety of season 2, and I alluded to this a lot in the first episode because, where season 1 of the show, we both really enjoyed it. In retrospect, the whole purpose of the season was to lay the bedrock and be like, all right, here are our characters.
Right.
We have Futuro, the 5 girls. The rest kind of don't matter.
They don't. They don't.
No, especially in the movie. But
Oh God. Is there even another character in the movie? I feel like
you see some dads, and Futuro's sister, like and like she does in the actual series itself, she's kind of just the presence like Futuro going, I need money, or else she's like gonna starve.
But she's also really annoying to him, which is really funny to me because he's
Yes.
like, I literally pay for your entire life because our dad is a deadbeat, and all you do is annoy me.
But it's so funny the way they paint the dad. They never paint him as a bad guy. They just they just show him as someone going through a financial hardship, and I'm just like, this is such a weird mixed messaging here. It might have been a little simpler if he was just a deadbeat.
It's
You know
quite
what I mean?
interesting. Yeah, it might have been simpler if he wasn't in the picture, but he very much is to do nothing because he's just kind of there, and he looks like he's just, like lives on a beach half the time. And he's just like, yeah, man, I just got into a weird situation where I'm just a young guy who happened to just straight up cream pie somebody and get 2 children. Oops. And then he's just living and he's happy. He's like, oh yeah, we're eating cup noodles tonight. Yeah, baby. And Futuro's like,
we're just having some cup noodles and enjoying ourselves. It's funny because I forgot how much of a theme food was in this show because in rewatching some of season 2, I almost forgot about the whole Nino versus Miku like cook-off that happened in season 1. It also becomes a theme. It keeps becoming a theme how Miku, one of the 5 sisters, the one you were the most high on and the most of the internet was the most high on.
Big Miku fan over here. Big Miku fan. Absolutely, yes. Continue, sorry.
But I forgot how much of her theme as it goes on is like kind of food related. She's like, I want to get better at cooking. It's like, good for you, Miku.
Yeah, because she's
Nino,
like,
and Nino's just a bitch, and I love her.
oh yeah, because Miku wants to get better at cooking or baking or both, so she can cook for Futuro. But all of her meals turn out terribly. And Nino is actually a very good baker. So Miku's like the theme, a theme of this season as well is like Miku being like, I want to be a baker, and Nino being like, you're really bad at it, but like I don't know, you're my sister, so I guess I'll help you a little bit. And then they ended up getting jobs at opposing bakeries, and I'm like, why would the other bakery even hire Miku? She's terrible, but she's endearing as fuck, so you gotta hire her.
Well, that's the thing. She probably did the pouty thing, and next thing you know, she's making $100K a year.
Yeah, probably if you're just like doing what a cat does to sheets, just like just like baking bread,
The joy on your face after you made that analogy. It took me a second, like, what the fuck are you talking about? What a cat does to sheets. Oh, that is so fucking funny. Yeah, but in this season, this is where, like I said, things really heated up because most of the girls kind of started to realize, like, oh wait, yeah, I legitimately have feelings for Futuro now. And
yes.
Miku had a scene that melted everyone's hearts when she was just like pointing at all the things she loves, and you think she's pointing at Futuro, but she's actually pointing at her sisters.
Yes,
and the audience
very
had
last
like these
episode,
giant pair of blue balls. Earlier, one of my favorite scenes in the series, if not my favorite, is when Nino drops the bomb.
Yes, that was really great, and I'm happy that they actually did that because for 1.5 seasons, all they would do was like, I don't know. Do I like him? I like him, but I don't know how to tell him. And then I feel like you have 5 actually distinct characters here in the quintuplets that have their own way of doing things each, and not all of them are shy. And thank God, because Nino is not shy, and you need somebody that's more assertive.
And you know what I loved about that scene in particular is because a lot of shows screw this up when the hard ass falls for a protagonist, where like at that point they kind of fuck up and change the character of the hard ass. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where she becomes a different person. No, when Nino said "I love you," she did it in a way that was quintessentially in character. See what I did there?
Quintessentially,
I prepped for this, but that's a lie. But yeah, I love the way she did it, where she said, like, remember how I said some idiot would fall for you? Well, it's me. Sucks to be you. I loved the dialogue there.
It was great.
In both the sub and the dub, it came across equally as powerful in both, because I basically watched both. I watched the sub first, because it was the only thing available at the time, pre-merger days, where I didn't have a Funimation account yet. But for the movie, and for like when I rewatched the show in clips, I'd watch the dub. So I got a good mixture of both.
You know, that's interesting. I on your comments on Nino, because you said before we started recording this episode that there was like one character that you just didn't like.
Okay.
And I was assuming that it was Nino, because Nino is...
Oh, no, she's my favorite.
Oh, that's great. She was my favorite, too. Because throughout the whole...
Really? You changed from Miku?
Well, it kind of was both, I think. Okay. And unfortunately, they really cancel each other out in this season, and it sucks. But Nino ended up being my favorite because of how direct she was, and how, like, to her core, the character was. And kind of to your point before, that I feel like every hard-ass character in anime, when they confess their feelings, they become this lovey-dovey, like, I just want to love him forever kind of stuff.
Yes.
And she was still very much like, no, I'm an asshole still. I just happen to really like you.
Fucking loved it.
Which is great. And I'm now curious, which is the character you don't like among the quintuplets? I'm very intrigued.
Oh, it's fucking Ichika.
Ichika. Yes. Okay.
All the bullshit she pulled?
Well, she pulled a lot of bullshit. She was like the main instigator.
Of bullshit.
And I feel like after she did all that stuff, like she disguised herself as Miku a bunch of times. She like, did all this weird stuff where she was like talking to Futaro as Miku, being like, hey, I think Itsuki likes you.
My sister. Yeah,
and I'm like, what the fuck? But like she did all that scheming and stuff. And I feel like she never really got the comeuppance for it, because every time she did something like that, they were like... Ichika, and she'd be like, hee hee, sorry.
And she even tried to say that it was her, that she was the first of the sisters that Futaro met when they were kids, and I was like, you bitch, you're just lying.
You're just getting into everything over here. And although she pulled all that stuff, I must say that this show did need an instigator, and she was that instigator. They needed somebody...
She was effective in her role, but her role was for me to dislike her, so, you know...
The role was to dislike her. But weirdly enough, I didn't actually hate her. My least favorite quintuplet throughout this season was probably Itsuki, just for the...
she was boring.
Yeah, just the lack of anything, you know? It just didn't really have much going on, and... there were so many points through this season where I was like, oh, they're not going to... Because she's like... yeah, they're not going to make him an Itsuki a thing, because there was always that like thought in me throughout the season that like, oh, but like she is kind of the main character, which is weird, but and I'm like...
She was like more like the poster girl than the main character, you know what I mean?
Poster girl is a good word, because she's the first quintuplet that he meets as a high schooler, right? Like in that first... scene of them meeting. So I was like, oh, well, you know, they met first, so there's kind of like some history there. Right. And she also reveals throughout the second season that she wants to be a teacher, and, you know, Futaro is her teacher. So I'm like, all right, like, I guess you could kind of match that up, but it's just the least interesting option. So I'm glad eventually that this season they did not go with that. But
they didn't pull the trigger on that. No, they went a different direction.
But there was one episode. There was that one episode, Robert.
Which one was this?
Where they went on another kind of vacation thing.
Right.
Because I feel like a lot of the plot points in this second season are kind of whatever. I mean, the main thing at the end of the day
I don't know why I found that funny, but I did. It's like, yeah, whatever. Fucking the plot didn't matter here.
It's whatever. It's just at the end of the day...
They go on vacation a bunch, and he kisses one of them next to a bell.
Yes, exactly. And he's just... Futaro is just being put in situation after situation of who do I like, and all these girls are being put in the situation of which one of us is going to get him. You know?
Exactly.
And there is this one episode where they go up for vacation to the quintuplets' grandfather's house.
I will say there was some good comedy there.
There was.
With all of them dressing like Itsuki, and Futuro's like, what the hell, guys?
Yeah, like, why are you doing this?
And then you learn like their grandpa is super weird and is very sad when the 5 of them don't look alike. And I'm like, that's a very weird thing to expect your 5 adult quintuplet grandkids to, do to look like each other all the time. That's so
our
fucking
grandfather will absolutely die if he finds out that I have any differentiating qualities from my siblings. That's what they said. And
it was a fucking weird plot point.
It was a weird plot point, but funny because
it was really funny the situation it led to. I will say, but I couldn't really ignore it the entire time. I'm like, this grandpa's a fucking creep.
He's a fucking creep. But also, it's funny because eventually, right in that episode, Futuro is like, "Oh, wait a minute. How can you tell them apart, sir? They're all dressed as Itsuki right now. It's kind of ridiculous. Like I could barely tell them apart when they were dressed oppositely." But and the grandpa's like, "Well, you just got to feel it. It's the love, And he's like, "All right, well, can you teach me?" And he just doesn't. And I found that dynamic kind of funny with Futuro being like, how do I tell the difference? And I'm like, it's not that hard, bro. Yotsuba looks like a green rabbit. Like, just pick her out. and the ribbon does fucking bunny ear tricks. It does.
Because, we forget that we're watching an anime.
We mustn't ever forget that. And I will say, throughout the second season, I did come around last year and say, hey, I liked it. I liked the first season. And the second season, I also liked it. It was that combination of like comedy, but also will they, won't they, but also he's kind of bonding with each of them in different episodes at different times. So I thought it was a good extension, maybe a little long. Maybe a little dragged out where I was like, all right, like I know there's going to be a movie because I'm watching this after it was released, but it kind of sucks that you sit through 12 episodes and there's no real hint by the movie of who he's going to end up with. Like, it's kind of hard. And the whole plot line in this season that I was like, the fuck is going on was the Rena stuff where there was that girl that he met as a child when he for some reason had blonde hair.
Because he was a delinquent kid, you see, who because it's against the rules in a lot of Japanese public schools to dye your hair like that.
Oh yeah, so that he was kind of deal.
And it's because his dad was the same thing, like the punk with like with the male jewelry and the dyed hair. Oh my god, he's a scourge on society.
How dare he? What if he likes men? How dare he?
How dare he?
Oh,
anywho, but yeah. So that whole plot point I found very funny because just fucking Futuro be like, oh, was it actually a 6th girl I met that one time? It's like, no, you're very wrong about that. It was definitely one of the quintuplets.
There's all this weird information about that throughout too. Like, I think somebody at some point tells him, might be Ichika because she's like a swindling bitch, but like she might have told him like at one point, like, hey man, we have a 6th sister. And he was like, what? And that kind of never really got followed up on. Somebody told him that there was a 6th sister. It could have been Ichika, could have been Yotsuba maybe, but somebody told him that and never really got resolved.
It might have been Yotsuba because there's like a passing line of dialogue and you blink and you miss it where one of them, I forget which one of the other 4 is talking Yotsuba, and one of them says like, Yotsuba, are you ever going to tell Futuro that it was you?
That's right, yeah.
And then Yotsuba was like, nah, I'm good. It's like, what?
Why? And then there was a scene in one of the episodes where Futuro's like at a dock and Rena just appears.
Yeah.
And she's like, you remember me, right? And he's like, hell yeah, how could I forget that? I'm like, what is this? What are you? And she like, she tells him like I think she just says like, forget about me. And he's like, all right.
I think that is what happens. I don't remember like a first conclusion on that.
It was weird. That whole plot line with like the love of my life, my first love, who I met for one day, and she treated me like a human being, so I love her. Haven't seen her since I was 5, which technically means that I am still attracted to a 5-year-old at this point in my life. But yeah, no, she's the love of my life, and I'm like, why?
Well,
Why?
no, unfortunately, that is such an anime way of a romantic storytelling. I met you when I was 5. I never stopped loving you. It is. I can't blame the show too much for that because that's such a cliche of the medium and for genre romantic anime.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's doing what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
I can't fault the show too much for that. It's like faulting any of the hair bands in the 80s for writing a power ballad.
True.
It's like
true.
you're stuck in the genre you are here.
Mildly derivative, but it's there, right?
Yeah, it's a little definitely a little derivative, but as we learned because we just finished up Isekai month not too long ago.
Oh,
and
God.
people like derivative stuff.
They do. They like the repetition, and I think you got a lot of that in this season too, with all like the year-end festivals. In the movie, I believe it takes place like the big year-end festival,
Right.
But there's like more
Festivals and
and
vacations.
stuff.
Those are the two like situations in this season.
Yeah.
There's a couple tests. Futaro for a little bit. The dad stops paying him, so I think the girls got some part-time jobs.
That's
to help
right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that whole plot point that they all had to get jobs.
I was rereading the synopsis earlier today, and like it was a very early season plot point, but it was cool.
It was early. Yeah, because they had to move into a new apartment altogether, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And then like the dad was like, "No, come back." And eventually they all came back.
Yeah, so it was kind of pointless. So at the end,
It was weird. The dad was also a weird character, the dad of the quintuplets, because he was like, "I don't approve of this Uyutsugi guy, this Futaro guy." And then eventually Futaro, like mid-season, which was weird that it was mid-season, helps all of them pass their final exam.
Yeah.
And he's like, I guess he wasn't that bad after all. Marry one of my daughters. Who cares?
Yeah, that's a thing with a lot of the overarching plot of this season. Now it's funny because my recollection definitely might have been cherry picked because the big character moments obviously what carried all the weight for me. Just like mainly the Nino and Miku stuff. Ichika being a conniving little shit that she was.
Yeah.
Yotsuba, she had a couple of good comedy moments, obviously, because that's her point.
Right.
I remember at one point it was her and Futaro on the Ferris wheel, and
oh yes,
and he was like, "Hey, can you like help me?" And she was like, "No, no, 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 no." She like has a little bit of a meltdown, which I thought was kind of funny.
I really like that. I it's weird how much I very much identify with the Yotsuba character. Because,
well, her hair's orange, so I mean,
yeah, I like orange, sure, but also the idea of never saying no to people that ask for help. Something that I do all the time. Like used to be.
You've got
really
a lot better,
bad.
but for a couple of
Thank
years
you.
there.
It was really bad for a little while, but got
for
a
a
lot
couple of
better.
years, I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?" Like, "Oh, I'm doing 17 things." It's like, "Why?" And you're like,
which of
"I
them?
don't know."
And you're like, "Which of them do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Oh, none of them. Why do you ask?"
And I remember you say it with a complete, like, the straightest face. You're like, "Well, none of them." I mean, but isn't that what people do? I'm like, No, actually, it's not.
No, it's not, sir. But yeah, with the whole Yotsuba thing of just like wanting to make everybody else happy and wanting to make her siblings feel comfortable, I was like,
People
okay,
pleaser.
I kind of identify with that. That's good. And what was the scene with them on the swings in this season? Or was that in the movie?
that was in the movie.
Movie. All right, okay. So we'll get to that when we get to that.
Honestly, I'm trying to think in terms of the season 2, how much more do we really have to say?
Not much. I think like the whole thing about this season, I think you hit on a great point earlier that this season is largely forgettable, as is, I think, a lot of the show generally. But the thing that isn't forgettable are the moments. I think the moments are very, very, they get stuck in your mind. But the episode to episode, like if you asked me what happened in episode 4, I'd be like, I can't fucking tell you. Like I have no idea. But I do know very key moments happened in certain episodes.
Yeah, and you can always give broad strokes of the personalities. Yeah, let's say the day-to-day plots, episode to episode, didn't really matter. But then again, in the first season, it was kind of the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Very like sitcom, romantic sitcom, right?
Yeah, and this is a rom-com. So
yeah,
if you want to be more anime-centric, you call it rom-com with a decent amount of slice of life elements. Mm-hmm. So it is what it is. But still really enjoyed season 2. Some of the payoffs from season 1 I really liked. I didn't mind it leaving us hanging. I really didn't mind it. Because I'm like, okay, I wonder what's going to happen. Oh, there's going to be a movie? Why don't I read ahead? So I did. I told you that last time.
Oh yeah, that's right. See, I've been a good boy. I didn't know until the movie, till I watched the movie. I was like, oh, there we go. Now I know.
Well, I think in that case, I think we can kind of call this right here, and then we could talk about the movie next week. But generally speaking, not bad. I mean,
no.
What were your thoughts? Okay, now.
Oh, right. That's what we do on this podcast.
Are you forgetting the bits?
I'm forgetting the bits. Well, sorry, what were you asking me?
Well, I guess I was going to ask you because you were super high on season 1 when you first saw it.
Yes.
Now that you saw season 2, what are your opinions both on this and season 1?
So I think I liked season 1 quite a lot. I thought it was very fun. It was like exciting. I think this season 2 got a little more dramatic, which I appreciated in moments. I think like with the NINO thing, that was like specifically good.
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciated the season. I liked it for different reasons. Okay. I thought like the moments were stronger. Like I can't really remember a lot of, maybe because of recency, but I can't remember a lot from season 1. I remember like certain maybe few things, but this season actually had like those big like confession of love moments, which I thought really, really carried it and made it kind of more impactful. Maybe it wasn't as fun to watch as season 1, but I kind of got more out of it, I think.
Well, maybe a good way to put it is where the peaks of season 2 might have been better than the peaks in season 1. The valleys might have been a little more intense as well. Like
that's a good way to put it.
There was definitely now I can definitely see where you're coming from, and I can agree with you. Where there's moments where season 2 got more boring than season 1 did.
Yes.
But the payoffs were more intense. So at the same time, they kind of level out.
Yeah. I also appreciate, I want to set aside a minute before we close here to appreciate how like generally not that much sexualization occurs in this show. It's like a little bit, like some of the camera shots you're like, all right, that's anime, that's Japan.
But very few.
But very little. There's like maybe a little dialogue once in a while like, oh, Nino, your tits are huge. But other than that, like it's very like, it's pretty tame. It's more about like the feelings
Super
than
tame.
like the physical kind of attraction, which I appreciate, which I think, I think it's hard for an anime to do that nowadays because I feel like it could just very easily go the tried and true method of here's boobies, you'll watch it.
I feel like in one way it's I feel like now you have to go with either extremes nowadays. You can't have something in the middle. You need to be either High School DxD or you need to be like Your Lie in April or one of like the more like acclaimed romances. You have to pick your ground and kind of stick with it.
Right.
You gotta lean more into one or the other nowadays, I feel like.
Yeah, is it is it going to be the stories or is it going to be the boobies? Like you have to pick one. You have to pick one.
Or is it going to be the comedy?
Or
that's
the comedy.
The third option.
Yeah.
Third option, I guess you could
and
say.
And DxD has that in spades, I will say.
That and My Girlfriend or a Gal are still the funniest pieces of things we've probably ever covered.
My first girlfriend as a gal was so funny.
So freaking funny.
So great. I almost forgot we did that. Wow, great.
Yep.
Well, there you have it, everybody. Not bad. The season 2 of Quintessential Quintuplets.
Season 2, if you like season 1, you're going to get a lot of the same stuff here. Drag a little bit at some spots, but those emotional payoffs are definitely worth it.
Yeah.
So
I
generally
think the
speaking,
continuation is
not
good.
bad.
Not bad. Actually good. But will we be able to say that for the movie? Well, you got to find out next week, everybody. We did a very minimal amount of salmon bushing in this episode. I'm actually quite proud of us.
It's bad.
Wow, oh my god, what a rousing podcast of anime conversation. Am I right, my compares? Am I right, my weebdom? Anywho, yeah, you can send us a message if you want. Did you like this podcast? Did you hate this podcast? Do you want to kill me? Do you want to drench me in Calaxosaur blood and watch me drink it? That's fine. Just send us an email at badanimepod@gmail.com or DM us on our Instagram at badanimepod, all one word. You can also find us on YouTube as Bad Anime, and you can leave a comment on whatever video you want to leave a comment on. We'll read them all anyways. We don't care. I love you. Kiss, kiss.
Simple Equations Podcast Network.